my father, look, my father preached that to me. It was always, I'll never, I mean, he had certain key phrases, and one of them I've always lived by, because he lived by it. It was, hey, pal, live and let live. Live and let live. In other words, there are different kinds of people, different kinds of backgrounds, different kinds of religions, different colors, and live and let live. And if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. And if you meet them, and you both have that same attitude, you can learn a lot from each other. Mm-hmm. And that was exactly, I mean, look, when I started teaching at Central Iceland, let me tell you, I learned so much about so many different kinds of people, different kinds of ethnic groups. By the way, new shirt. You've never seen this before.
No, I haven't. Well, I would like to congratulate you because you're my first podcast since I took a break.
And you know why? You know why I am? Because you had such a wonderful time with your former classmates and me, and it brought you back to a certain kind of reality that said, you know what? This is the way life's supposed to be. And look at the people who were around me and helped form the person I became.
Yeah, which is very true, because I was chatting with Jordan after our little breakfast, me, you, Melissa C, and Jordan, right. And chatted with Jordan afterwards and had some texts with Melissa, and we were just talking how amazing of, a day that we had, just, reminiscing and talking and chatting with you. So we had a great time.
Well, I'll tell you who thought it was great was my wife. I was shocked. She
just,
oh my God, I can't believe what a great conversation, how all the different topics and how easily it flowed. And of course, the funny part for me is, remember, we've been married 46 years. She goes, I can't believe that the respect and affection they have for you.
Really?
It seems like they really like you. And I said, yeah, unlike you, Ron, you've wanted me dead now. I mean, we've been married 46 years. I would say the last 20 years she's been wanting me dead or gone.
Oh my God. No, she doesn't.
So
well, you guys look great. She looked amazing too. And it was great seeing the both of you and having a little breakfast and chatting.
Oh, it was great fun. I mean, it took me, I've still been processing it, but I mean, I guess part of it too was the fact that it brought me back to when I was teaching you guys. I mean, it was a smaller group, but I mean, all of a sudden, I was who I was when I was in front of the classroom again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And part of that too, I used to always say to classes that the reason why, if we got along at all, that the reason why was because even though I was older than they were, whether I was a beginning teacher at 21 or 2, or when I was retiring at 55, that up here I was still 17 or 18.
Yeah.
And so that I kind of like never really quite got out of my teenage years in terms of a sense of fun, a sense of rebellion, a sense of
you still had your Peter Pan syndrome.
That my what?
Your Peter Pan syndrome.
You're right. Well, exactly. Yeah. And even now, I mean, it's funny because I go to the boat yard, I go to the marina, and the dock master is 24 years old, and a lot of the dock hands are all younger, and they were all like high school or college kids, right? Except for the owner. And it's just like, I have no problem talking with them.
Yeah.
I think they get a kick out of, here's this old guy, okay, with white hair, and he talks to us like we're real life people, and I make them laugh. Plus I also educate them in some ways. I talk about stuff that they are not used to hearing from somebody just picking up a boat,
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's beautiful about it, because it's just a natural human element of it. And just like when you were a teacher, you talk to us on subjects and topics that anybody who would enter the room, like you said, would be able to have a conversation.
Yeah, and they were remarkably, if you think about it, they were remarkably adult conversations.
Yeah, very.
And this is one of the great crises of our time now, is you have all these right-wing loony, neo-fascist, bully politicians, whether it's DeSantis in Florida or Trump or all of their respective minions, okay, who are what they're trying to do. They're trying to change Black history. They're trying to keep people undereducated, or they want to they say, well, we don't want the kids to be indoctrinated by the liberal professors and teachers like me, apparently. What they're doing is they want to indoctrinate them in their bullshit, as opposed to, and my job was, I was trying to say, no, you have to understand, you have to, I'm trying to indoctrinate you, unindoctrinate, because in other words, you've been taught all kinds of crap growing up, and you need to start thinking independently and make a decision about whether or not you buy into them or not. So, for example, all the stuff like, I remember we were talking about the Pledge of Allegiance and things like that. Well, first of all, I was totally against prayer in school, which I should have been, because they talk about separation of church and state for a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
The founding fathers knew about what happens in countries with theocracies and how it turns ugly, and they're seeking out people who are witches.
Yeah, and the Pledge of Allegiance has God in it, as you're right.
Well, but wait, let me give you a little history lesson here, okay? The Pledge of Allegiance, this thing about under God, didn't appear until, I guess, it was in the 50s.
So they just added God in there?
They added that. You know why? They were worried about quote, godless communism, unquote. So they added that to the pledge. Okay. I think it was during the Eisenhower administration. It's been a while. Even then, my problem, because I was young, was, well, why are they changing this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I said, well, this is but then, of course, when I grew up and I educated myself about the pledge, and we talk about it, is that anybody, if you see when this Pledge of Allegiance, I think it was late 1880, it was 1884, 1885. This was, again, foisted upon the population by ultra right wingers in that time. And they were trying to indoctrinate kids into being better citizens. So let's assume that they were trying to be well-intentioned.
Yeah.
But we're the only country in the world besides the Philippines who copied us, by the way, that makes people pledge their allegiance to their country. And the fact of the matter is, I feel, again, they've indoctrinated young people, and people believe, oh my God, this is terrible if people don't say the pledge. Like they even when my wife was saying, well, look at those women soccer players, they weren't standing for the pledge. And I said, yeah, well, so what? Okay. Fact of the matter is that if you knew, again, and I'll tell you who knew about this was Melissa, because John had said to her, because I had said, I think, in another podcast, where do you think the Nazis learned how to deal with the Jews? They learned from American slavery. They also had the Heil Hitler salute. That's what they learned. The kids in American schools were doing that thing when they said the pledge. And then once Americans realized, oh my God, the Nazis are doing it, and they copied us, they said, well, now we have to put our hands over our hearts.
So the Nazis learned a lot of their ways from us.
Yes, of course, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, and I get a big kick out of the thing. Talk about this nonsense about trying to, obliterate or change Black history for young white kids nowadays. People say, well, the slaves learned certain things that were a benefit for them when they were.
Oh my God, that's like the craziest thing.
But you know what they're not saying?
What?
Listen to this. And by the way, you can research this. Guess who taught the slave owners how to plant, raise, cultivate cotton? The slaves did.
Yeah.
The slaves, they knew about this stuff from Africa.
Yeah.
Okay. So they educated these slaveholders and helped them make, thousands upon millions of dollars in their plantations. They were the ones who educated them.
And they learned a lot of things from the Native Americans too.
Well, that's the other thing. And then, of course, and that's another story too, is that, for example, let's talk about the Shinnecock Indians. Okay. Now, the Shinnecock Indians out here on Long Island, Suffolk County, lots of white people are pretty racist and say, well, wait a second, they're not Indians. They're mostly Black. And I had to say, well, guess what? When the Black slaves, ran away from the plantations, they went to people who would accept them, which were the indigenous peoples locally, wherever they were. And so you got to have a lot of Black blood among certain indigenous peoples, because the slaves said, they accept us for being human beings, and they've been spat upon and tortured and whatever by the white population of this country. Okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
so that which explains why you have so many very black looking Shinnecock Indians. Okay, this is not a surprise, right?
Yeah.
So it shouldn't be a surprise. So but I mean, going back to our whole getting together, I once again, as the person, I mean, I'm so happy you guys came to our home, but I am still joyous and overwhelmed by the fact that you guys still think of me as a person worthy of your time. I'll be honest with you. I mean, I'm an old guy. You know what I mean?
I know, but you'll always have a special place in our hearts.
Well, that's what's so astounding. It's so astounding. I'm just going like, I'm over the moon about that. And I think my wife goes, gee, really? They have that feeling about him? 46 years. I just don't like it. I just don't like him anymore.
She knows that. She knows that all your students love you.
But I also think too, she's started coming to my book discussions this last year for the first time, and she went once the first year, but I've been doing these for 18 years.
Yeah.
And I think she sees me when I'm
in
being
a different light.
Absolutely. She sees me being my more well-educated, intellectual, dare I say, academic self.
Yeah.
Because when you're married, you're not talking about stuff like that.
So you think that she never really saw you in that light before?
Well, I'm being hyperbolic. I think that she's known for a long time.
Okay, she just hasn't seen it in a while.
Yeah, I mean, she's seen it with the book discussers, but I don't think she's seen it with people who were former students of mine.
Oh, okay.
And again, I'm trying to be fair because she's had former students come to the house and chat but I don't think she saw like an event that she didn't see. Well, remember, you guys were here like almost about 5 hours. Okay, because I know the Jordan got here around 9:30. You guys didn't leave till around 3 or so.
Yeah, I got there at 10.
And there was not a moment of awkwardness or silence. There was just a conversation just
flowed.
Yeah, it was
and that's
great.
the best part. When things flow like that, time just passes so quickly because you're just having so much fun.
By the way, cheers. You're into my cocktail hour.
Oh, well, I love a cocktail hour with you. I'm drinking some lemon water right now. I was thinking about getting a cocktail.
Well, I'm drinking some bourbon because it's 2:30 or later.
I don't have any bourbon at home.
Well, and I was out fishing. This morning. I took my niece's 2 sons, who are very nice young men, very nice. Yeah. They're 14 and 16. And it was horrendous. The fishing, the wind was so bad.
Well, I was surprised you went because by me, it's really cloudy here today. So,
well, what's it just the clouds? It's one thing to be cloudy, but the wind reports from the marine forecast and even the local weather forecast, the winds are going to be no more than 5 to 10 miles an hour. They were more like 15 to 20 knots.
Oh,
the bay was rocking.
Oh my God. Rocking. How many people can you fit in your boat?
Well, it says 8, but I can't have more than, for example, there were 3 of us. I wouldn't put more than 4 people on the boat because it's tight. It's not as big as my boat was. Yeah. My boat was still 25 foot and was wider. This boat is only 20 feet and it's narrower. But it's, look, here's what a boat is to a guy like me. A boat is really just a platform.
Yeah.
From which you go fishing. In other words, if it was a bamboo raft, I wouldn't care. In other words, as long as I can be out in the water and cast a line and try to catch.
I was telling Jordan about that. Maybe all of us, his kids and my kids, can join you on the boat.
But now the problem you're going to have is that school's going to start. So, for example,
so maybe we can do it before school starts.
Well, how many of you would be? How would it be?
Well, he's got 2 girls and I have 2 kids.
That's 4, 5, 6, 7. That's tight.
That's tight, but they're little.
Well, no, if you're on this boat, believe me, with just 3 of us, it was scrambling,
Oh, really?
Yeah. Now, if it were a calm day, might be doable, but I have to put my feet up.
Okay.
But you see, since you were incommunicado for so long, I never had a chance to arrange days to take your kids and you fishing. See, that's a problem. Now, of course, what's happening is they shut down on Tuesdays. I only go fishing on weekdays.
Hmm.
The weekends are too crowded and too dangerous because,
So let's go on a weekday. For the next 3 weeks, I'm home with the kids.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
We can do
home with
that.
the kids until September 7th. September 7th is when school
Let
starts.
me ask you another question. See, now here's the thing. I usually get the boat in the mornings.
Yeah.
So you'd have to get out here by
What time?
7:15-ish in the morning.
All right. So I'll tell the kids to go to sleep early and we'll drive out.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good. All
Yeah.
right. And then here, and then remember, this is only weather permitting.
Yeah. So let's do that.
Okay.
So whatever day you say, like maybe Wednesday or Thursday, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna look. I'll tell you what we'll do. This week is probably not good because first of all, the tides are not good, and the other thing is that the water, because of all this, the heavy storms and rain and wind,
Yeah.
the water is not clear. It's very brown and murky, and
Mm,
as a consequence, it's killing the fishing.
yeah. Yeah.
So if we wait until maybe that, not this week, but the next week, maybe
Okay.
that would be the best time. How about
Yeah,
that?
because
Okay.
now until September 7th, I'm home with the kids. So you check the weather,
Okay.
call me in the morning,
Sure. Yep.
and
And where have you and the kids been all summer?
well, I went 2 weeks to Delaware with my sister,
Right. And what about your kids went to?
and my kids went with me.
All right.
And then after that, I mean, it was like around April where I started to slow down. So already tax season, I start slowing down because I start stressing
Right.
about that. I still haven't done my taxes.
Oh, Jesus.
So like when I have the tax brain on my head, like I just can't do anything. I
So
can't
are
take
you
my cat.
suggesting that maybe in order to get you to go fishing, I have to get you out on bail from jail? Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Well, I postponed it till October, so I have until October to do my taxes.
Oh, good. Okay,
And
good.
like I just can't function. Like my brain is just like, oh, I don't want to do anything until
Well, I have to say, quite frankly, that you have had me worried for a number of weeks.
oh well, don't worry about me.
No, no. Look, when I said there's something up with her, and I
Mhm.
don't want to. She, I always felt, look, she knows if she wants to talk to me about anything, she can call me.
Yeah.
And I contacted you once or twice and claimed that you were dropping me like a hot rock and things like that.
Yeah. And I told you
And
I was not. I was
yeah,
just
but
taking a
I
break.
still felt that was not the Linda that I've gotten to know and love even more so than before. And I said, you know what? I'm just worried about her
Oh,
mental state. You know what I
yeah.
mean? I didn't want you to be depressed and suicidal. And I'm
Yeah.
going, you know what?
Yeah.
So
Well, here's the thing. I will never be, well, never say never, but I've never got into a state of suicide.
okay, that's good.
I'll just get sad and melancholy. And then taxes literally make me want to do nothing.
But I have to say this to you.
Yeah.
I've been in a state of melancholia for a number of weeks this summer because
Mhm.
I've lost so many friends just in the past 6 months to
Yeah.
a year.
Yeah.
And then last week I found out that one of my favorite female friends who, well, it's funny, we had a very strange relationship because it was like she wanted me to move in with her. She wanted to move in with me or vice versa. And I said
Yeah.
no.
This was back in the
Oh,
days.
this is way back. Yeah. This is yeah, back in when I was single and stuff. And basically we were each other's booty call.
Oh,
We
okay.
never went to a
I
movie.
think I remember that.
Yeah, we never went to a movie together. Well, I had a couple of relationships like that.
Yeah,
Never
I
went,
know. I know.
never went to a movie, never went to a
You
restaurant.
never got out the apartments.
No, it just was like all of a sudden we
It was
got
just animalistic.
yeah, if they came to my place, I went to their place, it was hi, how you been? And we were like naked in about 2 minutes,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
which in those days it was great. It was kind of great fun. But what I started to realize as I got older was that some of these women had feelings for me that they never really expressed. Okay. They felt closer to me than I thought. I'm
Mhm.
thinking they're as casual about this whole
Oh,
relationship.
so you thought they
No.
were just free, just like you, but they had feelings
Yeah.
for you. Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then of course I found out later on from a couple of them that I had a lot more influence over them, and they were getting stuff from me that I never realized they were getting from me. Now I
Yeah.
never said I loved them. I never I wasn't one of those kind of guys like, so I'll love you just to get into their shorts, you know. I wasn't that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I just felt I was a, you know, I was a surfer dude. I was free and easy, you know, things like that. So, but then upon reflection in my dotage now, I said, oh my God, I was probably really tough on these women, and I never realized it.
You didn't realize you were a playboy.
Well, but also I don't blame them, but I really wish they had told me
Mm-hmm.
that there was more in depth of feeling on their end than I thought.
Okay.
In other
Yeah.
words, they were
Yeah.
playing it cool. I was playing it cool.
Yeah.
And here's what we learn as we get older. It's not to any of our advantages to play it cool, really. You know what I mean? I mean, if I've
Yeah.
learned anything, look, I've done it with my students. I've done it with you guys. I learned to tell people that I care about how I really feel about them.
Mm-hmm.
I've made it very plain how I feel about you guys.
Mm-hmm.
And you've made it very plain about how you feel about me.
Yeah.
And over the years, I've done that as I matured. I said, you know what? And I'm talking about my male friends as well as as female people, female friends. And my male friends, to their credit, and some of them were very different from me, and they're different from each other. They learned the same thing. They would tell me how they cared about me. And I just,
Later in life, you think, or
oh no, definitely. Yeah. I mean, as we got older, certainly once all of us got into our 40s and 50s, where we're much more open about what our relationships meant when we were younger, because we met when we were, let's say, in our teens and 20s, how what those relationships meant to us then,
yeah,
and how they've transmogrified now.
yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And now that my two closest surf buddies died in their 70s, one at 74, one just last year at 77. I'm so glad that we kind of, you know, said to each other, you know, how we felt. I'll tell you who another problem is, that fathers and sons, for example. My father and I, before he got sick, okay, we always were very open with how we felt about each other. And I had many and many beautiful, intimate conversation with him about how I felt about him and what he meant to me, and vice versa. And so when he was dying, it wasn't like we, like, all of a sudden, like we knew how we each felt, right?
Yeah.
Some fathers and sons never do that. And
Yeah.
then they feel like, oh my God, I wish we had spoken about this. I was very lucky. And it was just like, okay, we said to everything to each other that we should have said,
Yeah.
needed to say, wanted to say. And there was closure there. It was like,
Yeah.
okay, we were fulfilled in terms of that. Most people don't get that kind of luck.
Yeah.
Or they
Their
don't.
friendships or partners, and in
Yeah.
general, a lot of people are
Yeah.
not very expressive with their emotions.
Yeah. So I was struck by the fact that when you guys were all together, and I'm sitting there going, man, how much do I love these people? How much have they been in, you know, it's funny, you guys say, oh, well, you were an important part of our life. But you know what? That's a two-way street. You guys were an important part of my life, both professionally and personally. And I don't know that I tried to make sure that you guys have always known that, yeah, the reason why we're still in touch with each other is because we meant something to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that that's really important. It's also, I think, unfortunately, really, really rare, you know?
It is very rare. And I think it's beautiful. Like, I didn't know that Melissa and you had such a long history. I didn't know Jordan and Melissa had such a long history.
Sure.
You know, so it was really nice to find out those things.
Well, I think I had said to you that, in fact, I had this conversation. I guess we were together on Tuesday. I spoke to my former colleague Ken on Wednesday. We had a Zoom chat, and I was telling about this wonderful day I spent with you guys. Okay, and I was saying to him about, I mentioned Melissa to him because he was a professor at Stony Brook. Okay,
Yeah.
now she reminded me, which I kind of knew, but my first ever class at Stony Brook, okay, because I was still teaching at the high school. It was 1997, so I had a graduate class, and it was all these students for English methods who after English methods, they go into the next semester, they go into seminar to you know, get their practice teaching in, and then after that they get their certificate and they look for a job. So Melissa had been, and again, in my honors world lit class as a senior, and also my AP English class as a senior. So now she goes off, she graduates, and much to my pleasant surprise, she's one of my graduate students in English methods at Stony Brook. And that was her senior year at Stony Brook. So that was like 4 years later, finally after high school. So then she, I guess, I'm trying to think. I guess she was in my seminar class. All I know is she became when she was student teaching, I became her cooperating teacher.
Yeah.
So then she spent like a whole semester with me.
Yeah.
You know, as a a student teacher.
Yeah.
And then of course she gets the job at Central ISM. And of course, I seem to recall I think I wrote a recommendation for her too as well. So then she became a colleague of mine. So now I had said to her, hey, look, we should be, because I was still teaching at the universities. I was at St. Joseph's for 2 years. I was at Stony Brook University for 17 years on and off. I was the downstate seminar teacher and evaluator for New Paltz, because a lot of the students couldn't do their student teaching upstate. I also did I did a semester at New York Tech. I did a semester at some other university. So I was in education big time.
Yeah.
So I said to her, Melissa, we should be writing a book about, what you experience as a high school student, a college student, and then a student teacher, and then as a colleague. I mean, she's seen me at every phase of her development as a teacher.
Yeah.
Okay. And I've seen her at every phase of her development as from a high school student to being a colleague.
We got to get her on the podcast so you guys can both talk and reminisce.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I thought it would have been a great book for in educational academic circles. However, you know me, I've got a lot of other irons in the fire, and when it comes to sitting down and writing a book, I don't have that level of patience.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's easier to have the audio version of you live on these podcasts.
Look, and she, as a young woman, she had a life to live, and then she, got married, had kids, and blah blah blah, and she's teaching school. I mean, she's lucky she has time to sit down and have lunch. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but I did say that would have been a wonderful, wonderful, I think, very interesting book for educators.
Yeah, yeah.
So
if you can't get the book, then let's have a podcast chat one day.
Hey, look, you're the producer. Don't talk to me about it. You know what I mean? I mean, I'm open. But I mean, when you think about it, that's a really rare experience.
Is she the only one that's seeing you through all of those different career and
I would say technically, yes, absolutely, yeah.
That's so cool.
It is cool, yeah. So I just think that, and again, I learned a lot from her, and also here's the couple of words we have to toss around. I think I always felt about my students, I wouldn't say paternalistic like a father, but certainly the word that we want to use here is avuncular, and avuncular means like an uncle. Seriously.
I know, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah, and I always felt to my students, I mean, at various stages of my life, given my ages, sometimes I guess I came off like an equal or a pal or something. Then later on, as I got older, I became for certain people like an older brother. Whether it be girls or guys, they said, well, he's like an older brother, And then as I got older, then it was more, I guess, paternalistic and or avuncular. And certainly with Melissa, I had a kind of it was a combination, but it's certainly more avuncular relationship with her, where I was looking at her, I was kind of monitoring her, and I was really proud of her. I just thought, and watching her develop and grow into being an excellent educator, an excellent teacher.
Yeah, and that's beautiful to see and watch the whole progression of someone growing up from, all the stages in their life, and then see them, where they are now and successful and, well-balanced person.
And then of course my relationship with my relationship with you was a little different, but then again, I would talk about monitoring. I was always monitoring you because of your sister. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was always saying, and I would talk to like in the art department, Krugy, whatever. Hey, how's Linda doing?
Yeah. 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 You watch from afar.
Yeah. And then I let you have the relationship with me, whatever that was that you wanted or not. Now, Jordan was kind of different because Jordan, I had him again. I told you when he was in my honors classes and stuff. And then he was my white security blanket in my first semester of teaching African American literature. And one of the things about Jordan was always bright, educated, always articulate, and not afraid to speak his mind. See, and I respect that. I love that with students,
Yeah.
And I could see then the kind of man I thought he'd become, and he became it.
He did.
Yeah, he became
I'm so proud of him.
Yeah, he became an excellent teacher, an excellent, loving, concerned father. I mean, you can't, if you're a parent or an uncle,
yeah,
like my avuncular, but you can't ask more. You can't ask more of the people in your life that you care about. You can't ask more of them when they turn out to be so good, so what you hoped they would be. It's just a beautiful thing, it's really a beautiful thing,
Yeah.
So and then there were a whole bunch of students too, Linda, that I really wish I knew exactly what happened to them.
Like who?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't want to mention names, but
why not mention names? Come on.
No, because I don't. I mean, no, because
so we can find them.
No. I know. Well, I've heard from some of them in Facebook, so I know what some of them are doing. Then there's others that, like I had said on Tuesday, that you never know what students really think of you until it might be 8 years. It might be when they graduate after a year. It might be 8 years. It might be.
Oh yeah, and then later on they'll come by or they'll visit.
Yeah, I told a story about this one girl I thought that hated me, and all of a sudden she sent a letter she made a thing to Sacred Heart, and all of a sudden the president of the university sends me this beautiful letter saying, hey, this particular student thought you were the best, the teacher that made the most significant contribution to her education. I'm thinking, but I thought she hated me. She was always so difficult. She was always so. But I mean, I think that's part of it. And even though you think, well, I can really judge kids, I can really evaluate them, that's not really true. I found out that and look, I know that probably, actually, I probably misjudged certain kids over the years.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm sure but I will say this about myself. And I think that my former principal would agree. I always gave my students the benefit of the doubt. In other words, if I tried very hard not to be judgmental, yes, I was supposed to grade them, so forth and so on. But I also felt that so many other people in their life, their parents, their relatives, their classmates, were judging them on whatever.
Yeah.
I just felt, no, my job is to be non-judgmental, to be tolerant, and only say to them if they really were heading down the wrong road, say, you know what, you're heading down the wrong road, think about changing your path.
But you did say that you did say that you saw students and then we had a word on our forehead.
Yeah, on the forehead, right. And I had to tell, because some kids, I said, yeah, one word might be scholar, another one might be loser, another one might be rapist, another one might be, scientist. I mean, you would, and then of course, the only good news, I'll now tell them, the good news would be, if the word is negative, it can be erased, but you got to be aware of it so you can change it,
Yeah.
And and I think the job too for some of the better teachers in the building was to get students to say, here's the perception that other people have of you that's negative. You need to be aware of it. You need to change it.
Yeah.
And then of course those teachers would try to help them change it, and I try to help students change it, So it was really, but I mean, so many things that we talked about, I thought it was, like, I tell you what I learned a lot about was when Jordan and Melissa were talking about the way the situations in the high school have changed vis-a-vis technology, and discipline, and cell phones, iPads,
and then the earbuds.
Oh yeah. I mean, those were things I haven't even considered. Okay. And if I was still teaching at the university about, teaching methods and stuff and seminar, I would really have had to educate myself about that because I didn't have to contend with those. I mean,
Yeah,
I retired in 2000. Yeah, there were cell phones, but they weren't as um, omnipresent as they are today. Not
yeah.
every kid had a phone,
Hmm.
and certainly, you could control it. They also didn't have all the kinds of fact that these kids I took fishing today, my niece's two sons, they're 14 and 16. They were talking about, because I mentioned the conversation when Jordan and Melissa were talking about, well, the school has given these kids Chromebooks. And I was talking about how the teacher can tell if someone's playing ping pong or something. And they
Hmm.
said, oh yeah. So then they gave me the name of the one piece of software that they use. So go, oh yeah, they have all this kind of stuff, you know. And so they're all well aware of it. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, God, I'd have to go to school for a whole other education. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
because all of these kids know so much about technology too. So you need to be on top of it and know more than them.
absolutely. And
Hmm.
to try and I guess what I was fascinated by was their frustration about trying to teach
Yeah.
in that kind of technological environment all of a
Hmm.
sudden, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
I just never, in my generation as teachers, we'd never had to contend with that, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just find that really fascinating, you
It
know.
is fascinating. It's really crazy because then like you have people who's also cheating and using AI,
Right.
Snap Chat GPT, and then she's got to put the information into there to make sure that where are they getting this information, which ones are they, copying,
Yeah.
which and what year, because they'll tell you what year that they stole the, essay from or something.
Yeah, I mean that to me was really fascinating.
Hmm.
I mean, the technology is that good for on the teacher's side, where they could say, "Oh my God," they can even know that. Let's say Joe Blow
Yeah.
copied his older brother's essay from 4 years ago,
Yeah.
or his brother's classmate from 4 years ago, and they can find that out.
I know. That's crazy.
I was blown away by that. But I
Hmm.
mean, by the way, I should really, next time you come over, I should bring you up to my study and show you my stack of Cliff's notes and Monarch notes.
Oh, so see, all of that's in the computer now.
Well, but I'm saying, but what I had to do was get those to
Yeah.
make sure that when I said this is obviously been plagiarized from something,
Yeah.
and they were plagiarizing them from Cliffs and Monarch notes because they figured, well, the teachers don't need those, so they'll never know I'm copying from those.
Yeah, but you read them, so then you knew.
Well, what I did, yeah, because I would say, well, okay, let me go check through this, and son of a gun, I'd find them like forget about it. It was great, and they were just astonished. They were,
You're like, what? Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
then word got out. Don't do that.
Well, I think what happens too is that's another thing. I think that depending on the uh, attentiveness and the uh, involvement and motivation of the teacher, if they see that a teacher is indifferent,
Yeah.
they go, okay, we can take advantage. When they see that there's somebody like, and here's another thing, they see someone like me go, I'm gonna be like, what the hell is his name in the book of the novel, what's with Les Miserables?
Uh-oh. I'm gonna
Uh,
let's sign out, end this, and then log back in
why?
because I only have a minute left because I'm using the one that's free.
Okay.
So we have to log out and log back in. So
Oh,
we
you
get
want to continue? Okay, fine.
yeah. Yeah, we can chat for a
Good,
little bit
good,
more.
good. I
Okay.
can go. I can go make a pee break.
Okay. All right, come back on.
Okay, but what do I do? I go use the same link.
Same link, just end it and then come back.
Okay,
And
and
then I'll have to accept you again.
okay, fine. I'm cutting out. Bye.
Okay, go pee.
Okay. So now here's something we discussed. Like the Jordan and Melissa had said something about giving them certain books to read,
Yeah.
and I mentioned The Power of Myth,
Mm-hmm.
Joseph Campbell,
Yeah.
and there was a TV series with 6 1-hour episodes on PBS years ago, and it's the conversation about myths and what they mean and so forth and so on. For many people, was like a life-changing conversation and education. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, in September, that's the first book that I'm doing in September of my book
Oh,
discussion
nice.
group. Yeah. And the other nonfiction book that I talked about was Love and Will by Rollo May.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else I'm doing is my usual worldlit stuff like, Crime and Punishment and Madame Bovary and King Lear and
Yeah.
uh, Oedipus Rex and stuff like that. Because I'm trying to mix it up. But
Yeah.
and I'm also, this is interesting, I'm also dealing with mostly well-educated adults, but it's also remarkable about what they haven't read, just like with me. I mean, for example, I spent my whole life reading books and being like world literature, ancient Greek and Roman literature in translation, and European literature, as well as English and American. But there are millions of books out there, and life is too short to read them all.
Yeah.
Some of them suck, so why would you bother?
Yeah.
you but I think that the ones that have meant the most to me are the ones when people say, well, what should I read? I'll say it's something like The Power of Myth or Love and Will in
Mm-hmm.
the nonfiction realms.
Yeah.
And then, of course, when it comes to world literature, there's a plethora of great books to read that have a lot to say about life and the nature of humanity. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He
So,
sent me a text and said that we want to do a Zoom with you after and chat about the book.
yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So whenever you guys decide to get around to reading that stuff or parts of that book, I'll happily talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh, because again, I think a lot of books guided me through my life.
Yeah.
Like I read certain stuff and I said, you know what, this makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly books that I read that even when I said, well, I'm kind of a nonconformist and I'm seem to be going down a different path than most people I know.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of times those books they kind of gave me confidence to say, oh yeah, you're on the right path. This is okay. This is good. You
Mm-hmm.
know, you're not you're not crazy. You're not abnormal. You're just you have just a different perception of the universe.
So you think the books gave you a perspective to be able to be relatable in a different way, to be okay with other points of view because they had those same types of views, or?
Yeah, well, yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that what I tell you what it really gave me too was just like travel. Traveling they always say, oh, it's a broadening experience because you
Mhm.
learn about different cultures and different
Yeah.
cuisines and
Yeah.
different ways of living and what's important, what's not important. And certainly the books that I read broadened my horizons about being tolerant about
Of different types of people and experiences.
yeah. I mean, my father preached that to me. It was always, I mean, he had certain key phrases, and one of them I've always lived by because he lived by it. It was, hey, pal, live and let live. Live and let live. In other words, there are different kinds of people, different kinds of backgrounds, different kinds of religions, different colors, and live and let live. And if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone. And if you meet them, you know, and you both have that same attitude, you can learn a lot from each other.
Hmm.
And that was I mean, look, when I started teaching at Central Iceland, let me tell you, I learned so much about so many different kinds of people, different kinds of ethnic groups,
Yeah.
different kinds of young people living at different socioeconomic levels. I mean,
You said your students made you into a man.
I told you that. I mean, really,
Yeah.
I was happy to be a superficial surf dude in
Mhm.
those years. I always told people, told students at the universities, I got into teaching for all the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I realized, oh my God, this is great. And then my student said to me, "You don't get it. You have to give us what we need, what we want from you that maybe only you can give us."
Hmm.
And they really put it to me. And
Yeah. I mean, you just saying that one statement, it makes the students respect you a lot more.
which one statement?
saying that, listen, I didn't the way I got into teaching was like I didn't want to do this. I kind of fell into it, and now I love it.
Oh, because I mean, the statement to me is the fact that, yeah, they made me become a real man,
Yeah,
really.
yeah.
They gave me, they made me become um, less superficial, you
Mm-hmm.
know,
Mm-hmm.
less frivolous about certain
Yeah.
things, you
Yeah.
know.
And I feel like everybody probably gets to a point in their life where they have to become, a man or a woman, an adult. And there's always certain things that happen to them that make them turn that way, either getting married or having kids or something. Well, now they realize, well, these people are starting to look up to me.
Yeah, that was a shocker. I mean, but I think I've said this, I think, in previous, podcasts. All of a sudden, I had to come to the realization and look in the mirror and go, "Oh my God, people are viewing you as a role model. Parents,
Hmm.
other adults, like you're a role model.
Yeah.
In society, teachers are supposed to be role models." Thinking, no, no, I just want to go surfing. No, I just want to ride horses. No, no, I just want to make love to all kinds of different women. Come on, what
And
is
look
it?
at you now.
Oh my God, Jesus, give me a break. And now I'm a solid citizen.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just telling somebody about how I've been president of the public library board of trustees in our neighborhood, okay, for 18 years.
Hmm.
I'm like a solid citizen.
Yeah,
I'm
well, that, and also you've been a faithful husband for 46 years.
Yeah. And by the way, not without great duress.
But
Yeah.
hey, you did it though. You did it.
Because when I was a young husband, I got news for you. I didn't get it. I'm going to say this to you in my usual immodest, non-humble way. I
Mhm.
didn't get any less better looking when I got married.
Yeah, but
That,
you were, the fact that you were able to be, faithful to your wife and turn away
I,
those many women who were probably flirting with you.
well, yeah, and you know what the sick part of our society is too? There are lots of women. This is no lie. There are lots of women who actively would seek out married men
Hmm.
as lovers because they didn't want to, at their point in their lives at that time, they
Hmm.
didn't want any encumbrances, any real in relationships where they had to make a commitment. It was
Yeah.
just they would get certain
So you had
benefit.
many of those that were coming after you?
Oh God, yeah, and I'll tell you, and I'm going to be honest with you, it was difficult. It was difficult, but I
Mhm.
also felt that I made the commitment to my wife for all the right reasons, and I had sown my wild oats for a very long time,
Mhm.
which made it easier for me to
Say no.
resist. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So that's a good lesson right there. Had you not, you know, done all the things you did and
Yeah, because I have news for
enjoyed
you.
all the women that you enjoyed, maybe you would have, because you'd be like, oh, I
No,
didn't get a
there's
chance
no
to
question.
be young and free and do all those,
Yeah,
things.
I mean, there's no question that part of the problem, I think, for people when they get married too young, especially for the men, they all of a sudden, after the blush is off the rose and the hormones slow down after a while,
Mhm.
they say, wait a second, there's a lot of other women out there, and there's a lot
That
of
you
other,
have not done.
yeah, and it goes, and go, what am I missing? Say
Yeah,
they go, what am
well,
I
it
missing?
goes the same way the females probably feel the same way where they're
Sure,
like,
sure.
I haven't
So,
been,
and here's what I learned. I learned that, yeah, the variety is nice, but a lot of times I learned that there were a lot of crazy women out there.
Yeah.
And when I met my wife, I said, she's not crazy.
Hmm.
Her value systems are the same as mine.
Hmm.
We understand each other. We each made a commitment. And we also knew that if either one of us were unfaithful, forget about love, forget about anything. That relationship would be over.
Hmm.
Or some people say, well, we'll make it right. We'll try to make it work. No, no. We both agreed. You cheat on me. I cheat on you.
It's over.
We're done. We're
Yeah.
done. It's over. It's goodbye.
Yeah.
And then I think we also felt over a period of time that we both would lose too much if we were not faithful.
Hmm.
And this is another issue. I think I kind of hit upon it a little bit Tuesday, was that uh, younger generations don't seem to work as hard to keep their marriages together.
Yeah,
I could be
I
wrong.
don't think
I
they
could be wrong.
value the communication and respect for each other, or the essence of the marriage.
Yeah, and look,
I think people just give up too quickly.
well, I kind of agree with you. I mean, and again, look, this is something where I'm just, I'm just guessing like everybody else. I don't have any definitive,
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
view of the whole thing.
Yeah,
But
or they think the grass is greener on the other side.
well, that's also part of it. I mean, one of the things that we kind of, for example, look at our political situation, and you see all these politicians who are becoming more and more openly fascist and anti-democratic and authoritarian. I've always said this about human beings. Part of this is human nature. I think all human beings, as individuals, are basically fascist. And here's how I define that. We all think that we're right, and we all think that if people did everything our way, they would be happier and the world would be a better place. Okay. And so if I say, well, look, if I were king, or if I were God, I used to tell my students, if I were God, I could straighten out the universe in a 4-day weekend, and they'd laugh, blah, 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 right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's a certain kind of fascist view that somehow.
Yeah, that's an ego, selfish kind of.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that, and people do an awful lot to hide it, okay? Because they don't want people to think of them as being fascist, or think of them as being egocentric and narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to admit it.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, you know what my theme song is? It's a very famous country tune. You know what my theme song really is?
What?
I should send it to you. I have a link.
We should play it. I wonder if it's copyrighted.
In fact, Krugi sent it to me on my birthday.
Okay.
It's called.
Have you talked to him?
Yeah, in fact, he called me, and I just called him this afternoon. We're going to meet for lunch. We're trying to meet for lunch.
Oh my God, when?
We don't know. I didn't know. I just told him, and right now, all of my Tuesdays are open. Okay.
Oh my God, can I pop in?
I don't know that he would like that.
He would love that.
Well, I don't know. I have to talk to him.
He loves me.
Look, I love Krugi. I know you love him too. But he's a very private man, Krugi.
I know, but I visited him and he loves me to death.
Look, I know he loves you to death. That's not the point. The point is that I don't know that he wants to make this a threesome.
I think every guy wants to make it a threesome.
Well, okay. That I don't think you needed to go there, okay? Just for the record. Anyway, so what was I saying? I digressed now. You got me off.
We were talking about egos and how.
Yeah. So what I'm saying to you is that this is part of the problem in terms of our politics, is that we all think that we know better than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then the people who are less secure and less educated will follow a clinically mentally ill criminal like Trump, because they have no lives of their own, no brains of their own, and they just go, well, they need to hang on somebody's coattails that help them, make them feel more confident and more secure. I mean, the guy, he's always been a lying, cheating, thieving weasel, con man, a serial adulterer. He cheated on all 3 of his wives, and a self-avowed sexual predator by grabbing women's crotches and things. He's said it publicly. And then, of course, he's started an insurrection. He's an anti-democrat. He wants to get rid of the Constitution, and people want to vote for this clown. I mean, come on. He's a blustering, bloviating buffoon. He's a moron, and unfortunately, people he got into the president. I mean, he's like the worst, most unfit human being to ever be president in history. So, but you know what? Part of this is all his ego, and also the ego that says of other people that, well, you know what? He believes in all this stuff that we believe in, like, being xenophobic, racist, anti-immigrant. I mean, it's part of that. Those kinds of people with those kinds of fascist belief systems, he makes sense to them. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then there are other kinds of people. So one of the things I've learned to do is that is to say, as much as I think I'm right about a lot of things,
Yeah.
to force myself as an educator to be non-judgmental.
How?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, look, I used to tell students, I said, look, if you want, being facetious and hyperbolic, I said, excuse me, if you want compassion, if you want real love and tenderness and sentimentality, you talk to your mother, you talk to your priest or your rabbi.
Don't
Don't
talk to
talk to
me
them.
about it.
Yeah, don't talk to them. They pay me to judge you. They
Mhm.
pay me to
Yeah.
evaluate you.
Yeah, exactly.
They pay me to give you
So then how do
grades.
you be non-judgmental then?
Okay, but here was my point. I would tell them that,
Mhm.
but I didn't mean it. You
Oh,
see,
okay.
I didn't mean it. In other
Mhm.
words, if there was any instructor that they had, okay, in their high school years, I was probably going to be the least judgmental,
Yeah.
okay, and I would probably give them, and as I said before, I would give my students the benefit of the doubt. In fact, here's something that I didn't talk about too openly, but if there was a rule, okay, and a kid broke the rule, I would say to myself, the rule is not as important as the kid. See?
The rule is not
Not
as
as important
important
as the
as
kid
the
who
kid.
broke it. In other
Yeah.
words, I'm more interested in the kid. The kid broke the rule, maybe his or her, he or she had reasons, but I wasn't about to just clobber a kid and judge that kid for having broken the rule. I wanted more information. What was going on in that kid's life that caused him or her to break that rule.
Yeah.
And if I could help that particular individual, I was willing to do that. I
So
wasn't
you
just,
wouldn't make it black and white. You would check the
yeah,
circumstance
you know
and
what? Okay, but you know
the
what?
situation.
That's a perfect thing you just said about things being black and white. Here's what I learned early on:
Mhm.
that the world is not black and
The
white.
world is not, and I honestly can't stand it when people come to me saying, "No, it's black and white, and it has to be this or that." I'm like,
Yeah.
"No, the world doesn't operate that way.
No, well,
There's no
Linda,
such thing as perfection. There's no such thing as just plain black and white."
absolutely. The world is not black and white. The world is gray.
Yeah.
And in that grayness, there's a lot of room for maneuvering, a lot of room
Yes.
for, compassion, a lot of room
Yeah.
for, and so I'm not hardcore about certain
Yeah.
things.
Oh, I'm
It's not.
glad you feel that way because that's how I feel about things.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. But I think that, again, I think if anybody was about to give a kid a chance or break or a
Mhm,
second
mhm.
chance, it was going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
that's hard when because I know plenty of teachers and students who had a really tough time in school who their teachers were very black and white
yeah,
and it
yeah.
caused them to have
But you know what it is too? I always felt that those kinds of teachers, it was based on a certain level of insecurity um, on their part. In other
yeah,
words,
because everything goes back to their own life and childhood and how they grew up,
yeah, yeah.
you
I
know,
mean,
and
yeah,
then they project it on to other people.
yeah. So I just think that, look, there were times I had to be tough,
Yeah. Mhm.
but I didn't take pleasure in it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
And see, that's the part that was most like my father. My father was such a gentle, loving,
Yeah.
tolerant soul. And I get that from him.
Yeah.
My mother was balls to the wall, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things I said to you on Tuesday is that you had the best of both worlds. So at least you had the opposite,
Yeah,
personalities.
sure. And what it did
You
too is
learned from both of them.
it allowed me and my sister to make decisions about which route did we want to take, which philosophy of each of our parents did we think was going to work for us.
Yeah.
And to my sister's credit, she walked that middle ground too, and I see it in her children. And
Hmm.
in fact, I took her eldest daughter's sons, two sons, 14 and 16, fishing today. And
Oh, okay.
yeah, and it was the first time I spent any real time with them.
That's
And
awesome.
what nice young men they are.
Are
They're
they?
15, 16. They were
That's
polite,
awesome.
respectful, pleasant.
Yeah.
I mean, just nice young men to be around. I call them men because even though they're still teenagers, they're young men. They're on the
They're
and they're
young
on
men because they've already, like, they're turning into their own points of
yeah,
view.
and I can tell that my niece did right by them. They lost their father early. He died of a heart attack in his 40s.
Really?
Yeah. So it's sad that they are growing up without a father, but my niece has been a
Yeah.
wonderful mother to them.
Yeah, that's like Jordan. He lost his father.
Yeah, and I'm really proud of her uh for how well she's raised them. And I also feel that it's important for them to meet other men
Yes. Well,
and
yeah, I think that's super important, and that's one of the reasons why I
yeah,
want
because
my
I think they need
to
like
hang
for
out with you.
well, yeah, I mean, I think that I had a lot of students whose fathers either abandoned them or they died young, and they were looking for role models. And
Hmm.
one of my favorite stories, we had a student who was a brilliant student, wound up going to Harvard. Is one of our few Harvard students
Hmm.
from Central Hudson. And I remember saying to him, Latino, and I said to him, "Gee, you in terms of who are your role models, growing up?" He said, "Well, nobody in my family. I didn't have men in my family who were worthy of following." He was that smart. He said, but he would watch TVs and movies, and he would pick, uh, I guess, whatever heroes or whatever that he thought were worthy of emulating.
Yeah, yeah.
And he developed a value system based on those. And I'm thinking, how smart and perceptive was he? And
Hmm.
he obviously chose the right ones, became a brilliant student
Yeah.
and wound up, going to Harvard and
Hmm.
becoming very, very successful.
That's amazing. I mean, like, it's
Yeah,
like those kind of stories that to me are fascinating.
yeah, they are fascinating,
Yeah.
because look, I was lucky, my sister and I were lucky because my parents stayed together. I had said to Jordan and you guys on Tuesday, you know, the psychiatrists always slam mothers because they said, well, look, they'll say, well, what was your relationship with your mother like? Because they know that most kids spend more time with their mothers than fathers. And
Mhm.
my contention has always been, and I think a lot of psychiatrists in this and their studies have said the same thing.
Yeah, I don't think I agree with.
Fathers, fathers don't have to do much. They just
I
have to
know
be
this
there.
is your statement that I don't agree with.
I know you don't. I know. No, no, wait. Okay, but yes, and I know why. Okay, but most fathers,
Hmm.
if they are just there all the time, if they go to work, come home, and they're around the house, uh, they're like, okay, there's a sense of stability and
Yeah,
consistency in that family.
consistency and safety that I said that you received with him being
Yeah.
there all the
Now
time.
you didn't have the safety part.
No.
Okay. My sister and I did. We had stability, consistency, and safety, and also love and nurturing
Yeah,
from
I didn't
our
have
father.
that.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I'm saying it's one of those things where I'm talking about in a
Yeah,
general,
yeah, the majority.
yeah, in general, when you have a stable family, especially with a father that is consistently there,
Hmm.
right? I was saying to the one of the marina people the other day. I was watching a father. Maybe I said it to you on Tuesday about a father and took it.
Oh
He
yeah, the father and son, right?
took it no, it was a daughter. His
Oh,
daughter.
daughter.
She had a ponytail. She was about 10 years old, 11 years old. He's out in this little rental rowboat,
Yeah.
out fishing by the same buoy that I was fishing by. And I'm thinking he was like tall. He was like a 6'2" guy, and she's like a
Yeah.
peanut. She was about
Oh, that's cute.
she was she's about 4.5 feet tall.
That's cute.
And she's fishing, man. She was fishing like a guy. She's jigging away, man. She's motivated. She's not quitting. She's patient. And I'm watching them fishing, and he's talking to her, and she'd catch a fish, and he'd unhook it for her. And I'm thinking, how lucky is this girl to have a father like that?
Yeah, that's
You know,
amazing.
yes, he loves her to the max. He took her, just her alone, took her out fishing, for the day.
And I think
And
that's what Jordan does with his girls.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. I mean, he's the kind of father that most people.
Yeah,
I wish that all my students over the years had the
yeah,
kinds of father that Jordan is,
Yeah.
and
And
my father was,
and
and this total
that's what I
stranger.
reminded. I reminded his daughters. I told him, I was like, listen, I just want to let you know that your father is amazing. And just to let you know that not all fathers are like this. And I just told them a little bit of just listen,
Oh,
my
so you met his daughters.
yeah. So I was hanging out with
Okay.
him after you
Uh-huh.
went to their house
Right.
and hung out with his daughters and his wife. And I let his girls know, like, listen, your father's amazing. And like my father was not like that. So you guys should
Right.
really appreciate the type of father he is, you know.
Sure.
Jordan
Sure.
reminded Jordan reminded them also, like, listen, Linda didn't have the, a good father. So you guys
Yeah.
should
Yeah.
appreciate what
Yeah.
you have.
Yeah. 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 It always used to sadden me that, I could see that people, and that's another thing too. I think a lot of times, uh, students that I had looked at me, depending on my age at the time. Like I said, either I was an older brother,
Mm-hmm.
or a
Yeah.
surrogate father,
Yeah.
or whatever, or a surrogate uncle.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think they viewed me in a certain way, and it took me a while to realize, oh yeah, that whatever their family situation was, I might be filling a gap of some sort. You
Yeah.
know.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that also it also added to the pressure of having to be a role model. You know,
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Well, I'm glad you stepped up and, was a good role model for a lot of your
yeah,
students.
yeah, yeah.
They're gonna forever
But
be grateful to that.
I guess, but I have to say, I can't tell you how overwhelmed and joyous I felt about our meeting on Tuesday.
Oh,
And I still learned so much about all of you, the three of you, in terms of what your lives are now as parents and what you're going through as parents. I just that to me that was eye opening. That was
mhm.
really eye opening. The concerns you still have, um, like I was thinking about Melissa's discussion of her, like her one daughter's going to college and
Yeah. One
son
going to
doesn't
high
seem to
school
be.
now soon. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I just so funny. I mean, I chose not to have kids. And I could argue, given the way the world is now, why would anybody be so, I could say stupid, but then again, also courageous to have children? See? I mean, I think what people automatically say, well, this is the way of the world. You get married, you fall in love, you get married, you have kids.
Mhm.
Instead of saying, okay, I can fall in love, I can get married, but why do I have to have kids?
Mhm.
I can have just get myself I could just get myself a big fuzzy dog
Mhm.
and everything's fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is my dentist calling to confirm my appointment.
Mhm.
Anyway, so and I've known a lot of women, in fact, former students of mine who chose not to have children.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And even then, I made it very plain to them. I gave them all humongous respect for making that decision,
Mhm. Mhm.
because I think, and it's funny, a lot of the women that I was involved with them when I was younger, they married other people, but they didn't have children. Okay. Uh, and I know, for a couple, I know some of their reasons, but their reasons really, it was a choice. I mean, they could have had children. They were certainly physiologically able to have kids, but they
Yeah.
chose not to have kids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then one woman had two kids, got divorced, and said, I want my husband to have custody of those children because he's very financially well off.
Mhm.
I'm not.
Mhm.
He's not supporting me in a way that I could keep these kids. And she just said, you know what? Let him bear the burden, not financially, but she was sharp enough to say, and let him bear the burden experientially,
Mhm.
having to deal with these kids to keep them safe,
Mhm.
get them childcare, whatever. And she said, I'm going off and I'm living my life because he screwed me over. And you know what? I'm done here, which I thought was incredible,
Mhm.
frankly,
Mhm.
because I don't believe in maternal instinct. How about that?
No?
In other words, no, I don't think that just because women have children, oh my God,
Yeah,
I'm going to
that's
be,
true. I mean, you should, but yeah, a lot of women don't.
yeah,
Just like
yeah,
a
I mean,
lot of men don't.
yeah, yeah. I mean, look, I've always been better off with horses and dogs myself, but
Yeah.
but again, I think I've cared for and concerned myself with other people's children.
Yeah, your
And
students were, your kids. You had a room full
yeah,
of kids.
look, that was good enough for me. But I often feel that people make their lives because they do certain things without thinking. I think that one has to think very
You mean sex without a
closely.
condom?
No. Well, I think they have to think very, very seriously about it.
Well,
A,
yeah, if you have sex without a condom, you're gonna get a girl pregnant, and then you're gonna have a bunch of kids.
well, yeah, but even with condoms, they break things. It's not about that. In other words, I'm saying, well, thinking, what's the kind of life that you want to live? You only have this one life to live. Do you want to live it in and sacrifice for your wife and children? Do you want it to just live your own life to become? I've heard it from a lot of women who said, if I didn't, I don't know if I told you that. I'm sure I did. A number of years ago, it was either Dear Abby or her sister. What was the other one? Dear Abby and something else. Anyway, they were like these agony aunts, these advice columnists. One of them did a survey saying, look, write me letters, and here's the question. If you were to do it all over again, would you have children?
Yeah.
77% of the people surveyed who answered that, she got thousands and thousands of responses.
Really?
Okay? 77% of them said, here was the first line: I love my children, but I would never do it again.
Oh my God, really?
Yeah. And then what they said afterwards was, and then he explained why they would never do it again. Well, I wanted to be a ballerina. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to, run away and join the circus, whatever their reasons were.
Yeah,
they
they
said,
didn't
no,
get to do that.
Yes, they felt that they wound up having to sacrifice their lives for the lives of their children. Now, as a person who chose not to have his own children, I'm often fascinated. We go to places and I'll listen to people talk about their children and, how they're doing. Are they successful or not? Are they not successful? Or they turn to alcohol, drugs, whatever. And I'm thinking, gee, also a lot of them, their own identities are based upon the success.
It gets meshed. Yeah, it gets meshed together, which is not
the success.
Which is not a healthy situation.
Yeah, I don't think so. In other words, they're based of their identities about the success or lack of success.
Yes, and it's always like that, and I hear that a lot, and I'm like, no, don't do that.
Yeah. So this is an era where I can be really, really objective.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's a good thing, but I'm objective about it.
It's your opinion.
Hey, look, Linda, I'll be honest with you. Living the life that I've lived and doing the things that I've done, I don't know that I ever could have done them if I had 2, 3, 4 kids. There's no way. I couldn't have afforded it. I probably, unless I was making mega bucks.
I don't think you would have the same personality either, because you would be like stressing about the kids and this.
Well,
and
that's
that.
probably. I mean, look, I don't worry about my children because I don't have any.
Yeah.
I don't worry about my grandchildren because I don't have any. I've got stepchildren, step grandchildren, but it's different. Okay.
Yeah.
I worry probably about my 2 little dogs, my little goddesses, more than anything else. Okay. But I mean, my time has been my own.
Yeah.
My money's been my own. I mean,
even when my time is my own now, it's still not my own because I still worry about my kids.
Yeah, but see, here's the issue too, though. As I'm saying these things, I'm saying my. People say, well, if you don't have children, you're really selfish. And I go, yeah, absolutely, I'm selfish. If I only have one life to live, and that life could be long or short, whatever. Right now, it's on the long side. I'm 78. Yeah, it was. You want to call me selfish? Call me selfish, because I think that I wanted to live my life my way insofar as I knew what my way was going to be. Okay.
And you did.
And I did. And you want the truth? Am I unhappy? No. Do I regret not having children? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I had the virtue of helping and dealing with other people's children. I was happy to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. But I didn't have to worry about my own. I always make the comment about, well, gee, when I had my horse, I wouldn't have to let my kid ride my horse or play with my fancy, expensive stereo or drive my spiffy.
Or your guns. And
yeah. No, I have those, right. I wouldn't let them buy, drive my spiffy red, Lexus convertible. No, I'm not no, I don't have to do that. In other words, my stuff is my stuff.
Yeah.
And so call me selfish, but then you also have also call me happy, content, satisfied, lucky, fulfilled.
Yeah, and that's what we all want at the end of our lives, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, again, if life is short, I don't know, I want to squander it, sacrificing it for other people to a great extent.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, have I sacrificed certain things? Yeah, but not a lot, not enough.
I love it.
And I do think that sometimes people have to learn to be selfish. If not, they'll be miserable.
Exactly.
So on that note, I guess we should stop, because I think I've got to go and take care of my goddesses, because I think they need to be fed.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad we did this, and I'm so glad that the cause of it was our lovely, lovely brunch on Tuesday with you.
It's all Jordan setting it up, so I appreciate him.
And you know what? I'll tell you, I cannot say enough about him, and I can't say enough about all three of you. You guys have been just such a wonder and joy for me.
It's like your kids coming to visit you.
And you want the truth? I probably, I mean, I've got these step grandchildren with whom I have much less of a relationship than with you guys. Okay, not that they don't care about me and whatever. That's not the point. The point that is, they have a different view of me than you guys do.
Yeah.
So, and I'm grateful for the view that you guys apparently have for me. So, I'm going to end that on a wonderful note. I am the most grateful and most lucky of men, of former teachers, and I honor all three of you for putting me in that position.
I love it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And we'll do it again. We'll continue our weekly conversations, and we can chat about some of the books that you had mentioned.
Hey, listen, you're the producer. I'm leaving it all up to you. You make the decisions. You tell me.
We have to figure out what shirt we're on.
Well, this is probably 31.
Probably, right? Yeah.
So now subtract 31 from 169.
Oh, you have 169. I know.
So we got a long way to go.
We got more to go. You gotta stay alive so we can do more.
All righty, babe.
Okay, bye.
Take care.
Take care. Bye. Getting back to me, my art. All I want to do is art. And the other thing is that I love stories. So like, to me, art isn't everything. Your art is your voice, your speaking, your connection. You can feel everyone's energy. That's your art. It's the art of living to me. So Art and Hustle to me is the art of living, and art of it and everything.
I hope that you've